Right. I can't tell you how much I regret bringing you all out tonight, but we really did need to respond to Cindy Lamb's budget statement today because there are some serious matters in that statement, and the statement is simply not correct. Let me start out by saying that Ms. Lamb's release has several errors and is misleading. Ms. Lamb never initiated contact with the mayor's office about her concerns over the state budget lid. In fact, it was my office that asked her to meet on the issue after we had spoken to the state auditor. Secondly, it is also completely untrue to suggest that anything illegal occurred. We did not misreport votes. The fact is, there was a legitimate question about the number of city council votes required to pass the additional budget lid authority. The rule she refers to requires a vote of 75% of the city council to add the 1%. In 2012, 5 of 6 council members, or 83%, voted in favor, and 1 council member was absent. The finance department believed that they had met the threshold based on their interpretation of the language on the forms submitted to the state auditor's office. Last week, we contacted the state auditor's office to determine if the absent member should have been counted as a no vote. They told us that their interpretation was that the absent member should have been counted. Whether it was a mistake or not, they indicated that no further action was required and no correction was necessary. We conveyed this information to Ms. Lamb at our meeting yesterday. Apparently, Ms. Lamb has decided that a partisan political attack is a preferable solution to working together on a bigger issue that we also discussed with her at yesterday's meeting, one that could have a dramatic negative impact on Lincoln's future. I'm disappointed by her choice. Let me tell you what I think Ms. Lamb was really up to. Her partisan attack to obscure the bigger issue and the one that we asked the council to help us solve. We asked council members, including Ms. Lamb, to meet with us in an attempt to work cooperatively on an issue that indeed threatens to derail the community's growth and devastate the city services that support growth and a high quality of life. The state of Nebraska only allows city budgets to grow 2.5% each year. Unfortunately, that creates a barrier to growth. If the city council chooses to do so, they can help ease that barrier to growth by allowing the budget to grow 3.5% per year. If that additional 1% is not consistently approved in a growing community, it will wreak havoc on the city budget, destroying the flexibility needed, for example, to hire new police officers and firefighters and maintain library hours and keep swimming pools open. Without that 1%, we cannot keep pace with the annual inflationary and growth costs of providing needed services, and our city will not grow. Ms. Lamb is out to kill growth. This isn't an issue of raising taxes. It is important to understand that authorizing the additional 1% growth will not lead to a tax rate increase. It merely allows the city the authority to spend money that is already budgeted and collected. That's why this should not be a controversial issue. Each and every year in the state of Nebraska, cities and counties and all kinds of other governmental entities routinely approve the 1% growth increase to protect key services, the extra 1%. The Lancaster County Board has approved it every year since 2006 because they understand it is fiscally prudent to invest in the county. Omaha, Bellevue, Papillion, Fremont, Kearney, Norfolk, and almost every large city in Nebraska approves the extra 1% growth increase as a regular, routine part of doing business. We have passed out to you a chart illustrating what other cities have done. Omaha, 7 out of 7 vote for it, all 5 years going back, and so on and so forth for almost every major city in Nebraska. Without that 1% increase, we cannot keep pace with the annual inflationary and growth costs of providing needed services. And our city cannot grow. Ms. Lamb is out to kill growth. This isn't an issue of raising taxes. It is important to understand that authorizing the additional 1% growth will not lead to a tax rate increase. It merely allows the city the authority to spend money that is already budgeted and collected. That's why this should not be a controversial issue. Each and every year in the state of Nebraska, cities and counties and the other governmental entities under the law routinely approve the 1% growth to protect key services. These Nebraska communities have voted to allow additional growth despite the fact that the state requires a very high standard for approval. 75% of the council must vote in favor. Unfortunately, Lincoln has not followed the rest of the state. For 7 of the last 9 years, the city council has chosen not to approve the additional 1% growth. While the majority of council members consistently have approved the additional growth, it is not enough, according to the state auditor. The state standard cannot be met if even 2 of the 7 council members vote no. Over time, that means just 2 of our 7 council people can eventually stop Lincoln from growing. And we are at that point where that may happen. Our failure to take action has led to a completely predictable outcome, one that Ms. Lamb must accept responsibility for because she has consistently voted to keep this growth barrier in place. Our community wants to grow and enjoy the benefits that growth provides. By foregoing the 1% growth over all these years, it has had the cumulative negative impact on our ability to meet the needs of an expanding community. Every year without action has brought us closer and closer to the day when our community's growth will be severely hampered. Our previous choices have nearly closed the door. Now we are at a critical time. Our budget office is telling us that unless we take action in the next 12 months, we will be severely limited by the growth barrier in the next budget year. That's why I called city council members together and asked them to help craft a solution. I asked them to consider a resolution in October or November of this year to adopt the 1% growth increase for the upcoming 2018-2020 biennial budget. We need to know the council's intention on growth policy before the administration's budget proposal. This, by the way, is the recommended practice by the State Auditor's Office. Without the council votes necessary to pass the additional 1%, the 2018-20 budget will have serious cuts to existing services. The consequence could be severe. City government is much smaller than it was when I took office 10 years ago. Even today, the city has fewer employees than when I was first elected 10 years ago. As a result, there are fewer places to go for the cuts necessary if we hit the growth barrier. Over 50% of our budget is spent on public safety. If we choose not to cut public safety, the other 50% of the budget will have to sustain 100% of the cuts. Lower priority services like roads operations, libraries, parks, pools, and neighborhood services will likely face deep reductions. The failure to pass the resolution will strangle our city's growth and set our community back for years. Remember, this issue is not about raising or lowering taxes. The council does that when it sets the tax levy. This is about whether we continue to allow new homes and new businesses to expand Lincoln's tax base. If we vote to choke off the revenue for new growth, we will inevitably force cuts to critical services that support Lincoln's families and businesses. That makes Lincoln less attractive to prospective employers and employees. In fact, growth helps take pressure off property taxes. We just concluded the 2017-18 budget and successfully lowered the city property tax levy by 1.7 cents. I think we did better than any other political subdivision. That was possible because of growth in our tax base. It is a great example of what we risk when we don't take advantage of growth to build our community. We can no longer continue down the path we're on. Restricting growth is not the right course for this community. I want to work with my city council colleagues, do the right thing for Lincoln's future, and pass the 1% growth allowance for our city. Over the coming weeks, I hope that we can have a public discussion on why this is a critical juncture for our community. I'm confident that Lincoln residents approve where our city budget is headed, and together that we can find a solution that keeps us growing and moving forward together. Thank you. Questions? Yeah.
I'm looking at Councilwoman Lamb's statement. It says here, I've been trying for weeks to get the administration to correct these illegally reported votes, but the administration has refused to do anything. Are you saying that that's an incorrect assertion on our part?
Yes, that is incorrect. We have sought to address all aspects of this situation and to come up with a correct approach. We've had discussions with the auditor's office. We've had internal discussions about this growth situation that we're in. And the real issue here, Charlie, is what is being done to kill growth in this community by the city council votes of the last 4 or 5 years. and it's a serious matter, and we shouldn't get sidetracked on things that we've cleared with the state auditor, because this is huge and fundamental, and we need to address the real issue and not be in these side circuses.
Okay, so we're just into the second year of the budget, and so your next budget will come next summer. When do you want to see this resolution of intent of whether we go with 2.5 or 3.5 next time, if you have the best case?
The best interests of the city are to determine the issue early, because we have a budget process that begins actually this fall. And we have moved the budget process forward in response to the council's desire to engage and to engage earlier and to have a longer process. But we can't start making serious budget decisions until we know how much money we can budget. And so what makes sense is to have this matter decided later this month or next month.
If this is an untrue statement on her part, then is this due to the relationship between the mayor and the council going into this process, or just on an ongoing basis?
Well, the statement was not helpful to relationships, obviously. But we do what we always do. We bounce back. We try to start anew every time and do what is reasonable and what is sensible. And that's what we'll try to do in this case. And if we think somebody is not acting sensibly and in the best interest of Lincoln, we will say that. We will not say that hopefully meanly or with any sense of outrage or any long-term ill feeling. But the truth needs to be stated, and it needs to be stated strongly, and it needs to be stated accurately. And the truth is, this is killing growth in Lincoln.
How long is this 5 out of 7 versus 5 out of 6 discussion been going on behind the scenes?
You know, I've been aware of it about a week or so.
So even though it's several years after the fact, how did it come up first?
Well, I believe it came up because Ms. Lamb was discussing with the budget office and questioning whether we had done things right in the past. Is that accurate, Brandon?
That's correct.
So if that discussion was underway anyway, it did originate with her then?
Pardon me?
It did originate with her then?
To the best of my knowledge, it did.
Okay. So what are the implications, one way or the other, now that this is brought out in the public? I mean, is the city going to be subject to some litigation over it, for example, by maybe a disgruntled taxpayer?
I don't believe any such indication has ever been given to us by the state auditor's office. I think, as I said in the statement, they were satisfied with the interaction between ourselves and the auditor's office. This is not, as we've come to understand it to date, this is not a matter that's of concern to the state auditor. And again, let's go back to what the real issue, what the real matter is that will change things in Lincoln. Whatever is done with the state auditor on this matter, it won't change the destiny of Lincoln, okay? It affects a small matter, really. What will affect it is what happens with the 1% going forward into the future. And that's what we need to talk about, and that's what we need to discuss.
So you don't see any threat that past budgets would need to be adjusted, or that some...
No, I mean, even if we made the mistake, we wouldn't have to adjust any past budgets. That's not the way it works. Accurate?
Yep, that's correct.
So is there any implication for affecting the limit next year, other than whether we go 2.5 or 3.5?
Oh, absolutely. Does it make a difference? It makes a huge difference.
I mean, is the outcome of this particular argument that she's raised, does this have any implication for changing the situation next time, or do we just vote again?
Oh, I think there are potential implications, but but with our understandings from the auditor's office, there's nothing that's going to happen that will change anything with respect to how we go forward into next year. Accurate? Okay.
So is the issue moving forward then that you don't have enough flexibility in the next 2 years because of the previous rejections of the 1% addition?
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
That's absolutely right.
You need to have it next year in order to do what you think should be done with the budget.
Say that again, please.
So you need to have the it's been rejected for several years, okay? But now you need to have it in order to build the kind of budget you think is appropriate for the next 2 years.
Absolutely.
Okay, it doesn't reflect even further into the future?
Oh, yes. I mean, it gets worse every year you go out. It's going to be bad the next 2 years. It's going to be impossible beyond that.
And this is just asking the council, saying, will you vote to add the 1% next year and the year after? It's not
Yes.
a binding thing, it's just.
It's not for everything. It is for the next 2 years. But Brandon, do you want to elaborate on that,
They
or?
would have to vote again. No. No. Okay.
The vote can take an effect for the next 2 years in the biennium.
But doing a biennial budget, you do 2.5 for year one versus 3.5, and then 2.5 or 3.5 for the second year
Yes.
independently? Or is it for 2.5 or 3.5 each of the 2 years?
Well, we haven't sat down and technically drafted the resolution, but it would be designed to cover both years.
And in the past, when you voted to increase it, when there's been a positive vote to include the 1%, that didn't mean that you used it that year, right?
Right.
Okay, it's something that you can save so that you have flexibility.
Yes.
In the long term.
If you don't use it all, you can put it in the bank.
Right.
We can't put anything in the bank anymore. What we had in the bank is, the bank accounts just get smaller every year.
Right.
Are you getting to a cash position where you might be threatening a bond rating?
Uh,
Use of cash or something like that?
No, we wouldn't let it get to that point, of course.
But you're talking about essentially getting close.
Oh, we'd have to follow the law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Sure, maybe one more question?
So are you going to actually, is this a council resolution that you present then? I, the mayor, would like to exceed the budget limit for the next 2 fiscal years?
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to let the city fall apart. We've spent 10 years making this a great city, and there's been enormous progress in this city, and I think everybody recognizes it. And everybody has been in favor of a growth policy, and the growth policy has produced these huge reevaluations recently. What's to not like? And yet we're going to destroy something that's in good shape.
My question is more procedural. Is it up to
Oh,
you
I'm sorry.
to introduce a
Yeah.
resolution before the council?
Yeah.
Have you picked a date where you're going to introduce it then?
No.
But you're saying it'd be within the next month or so?
Yes.
All right, we've got Brandon Kaufman, our finance director, and Steve Hugenberger from the city attorney's office is here if you have any more questions afterwards. So, thank you
All right,
all,
thank you
especially
very
for coming
much.
at this unusual time.